The following is an in-depth story analysis. If you haven't seen Mr. Robot, you may want to before watching this video. When cable television comes up, what often comes to mind is the writer's innate desire to rise to the TVMA occasion and pack the series with gritty excess. Why just have a monologue when we can have sexposition while we're at it? While networks like HBO pursued audiences through increasingly gory and raunchy titillation in the 2000s and 2010s, the USA Network endeavored to brand itself in a more unconventional manner for cable television. The characters welcome blue sky marketing, with their flagship series being the investigative procedurals Monk, Psych, and Burn Notice. USA wanted to stand out in the market by highlighting the nature of its more lighthearted shows that thrived on the affable charm of their lead characters. Those halcyon days couldn't last forever, though, and with the rise of streaming services in the mid-2010s, blue skies would fade to gray and USA would have to make some changes, pivoting their programming to reality television, sports, and the occasional short-lived spin-off series of Universal-owned film franchises. However, as the scripted television wing of USA was slowly shuttering, they would give audiences one last winner for the road: the unexpectedly grim and psychologically twisted masterpiece, Mr. Robot, which managed to survive for the entirety of its planned 4 seasons, despite terminally low ratings thanks to the accolades showered on its writing, direction, and performances. And while many industry analysts noted that the show's drastic shift in tone from USA's usual breezy fare was the death knell for the network's credo, I would argue that characters are still welcome because Elliot Alderson is certainly a character. Or, oh, I already got the spoiler warning out of the way, he's multiple characters. This is Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot tells the story of Elliot Alderson, socially withdrawn computer security specialist by day, vigilante hacker-cracker targeting traffickers and diddlers who need to have a seat over there by night. The series delves into Elliot's psyche as he wrestles with the internal and external forces pushing him toward either contorting himself to conform within an obviously hemorrhaging late-stage capitalist society, or rejecting said society and joining a hacker collective known as F-Society, helmed by the titular Mr. Robot and planning to, you guessed it, F society for the good of the working man, with the revelations of the first season revolving around uncovering that those internal and external forces pushing and pulling on Elliot are significantly more internal than he or the audience first realized. Mr. Robot's plan, as revealed in the pilot, is to target the financial records of shady American megacorp E-Corp, more commonly referred to by their fitting nickname Evil Corp, thereby erasing the debts of a significant portion of the American public. And as revealed in the second episode, how Mr. Robot intends to accomplish said plan is by blowing up a power plant adjacent to Evil Corp's impenetrable server backup facility, Steel Mountain, taking the facility out in the blast. Uncomfortable with the innocent bystanders who would get caught in the crossfire in Mr. Robot's scheme to boom boom shake shake the server room, Elliot proposes a more convoluted but less bloody plot to accomplish the same end, sabotaging Steel Mountain's heating and ventilation to destroy the servers, and recruiting the Chinese-based hacker group The Dark Army, of questionable ethics and questionable allegiance, to handle sabotaging the backups. Off to the races.
Should I turn them in? Will I get into trouble? Shit, she's right. I'm culpable now. No, we're culpable. You're in this with me, so start thinking of solutions now.
I mentioned the plan itself isn't really elaborated on until the second episode, and in truth, I don't think Mr. Robot puts its best foot forward in the pilot. It's kind of funny. These retrospectives started out with me talking about the 2 most perfect pilots I'd ever seen. Then every video since has just been the bitching about pilots variety hour. The series really comes into its own as the first season progresses, with the unique voice of the project crystallizing by the freshman year's 3rd act. But the early episodes can be a bit paint-by-numbers anti-hero cable drama, with the pilot in particular making me wonder, is this just Dexter, but hacking computers instead of hacking up bodies? Well, short answer, no. Long answer, no, because the execution is vastly different, though there are quite a few high-level similarities running through Season 1. You know, social misfit vigilante protagonist with an internal monologue that plays fast and loose with the fourth wall, employed by the very institution that would one day hunt him down should his extracurricular activities ever come to light, and as both shows go along, spoilers for Dexter, the introduction of a hallucinated father figure who provides unreliable advice, the revelation that the first season's mastermind leaving behind cryptic clues is so invested in our hero because the two are blood relatives, and how could anyone forget an inappropriate relationship with his sister.
Oh my god, Elliot, what the fuck?
I'm sorry.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Fortunately, later episodes shine more and more as we move beyond the premiere and the series comes into its own. One-off hacked dickheads of the week wind up having greater significance to the plot further down the line, even if their significance may not be apparent at first, preventing the show from falling into an episodic villain of the week routine that it at first seems to be flirting with. The Hackerman shenanigans step away from the code flying by on a computer screen of the debut, with Mr. Robot instead indulging in the more viscerally intense world of physical infiltration and social engineering. These sequences are marvelously tense, with the tension only ratcheting up further thanks to the captivating score by Matt Quayle. While I'm on the subject of music, I'll point out that Mr. Robot beat South Park to Steal My Sunshine and The Suicide Squad to People Who Died. And those are two ludicrously good needle drops. Even by the 4th episode, Elliot's penchant for drug abuse has evolved from the aforementioned the main character does drugs because that's what gritty TV MA shows do, to an avenue for psychedelic character exploration. For the mentally unstable viewers among us, such as yours truly, Elliot's misguided dalliances into self-medicating with morphine and later Adderall as the series moves along are amusingly relatable.
We had a system, but it kind of broke down. You need to be really careful with the ratios. We just got the ratios a bit off. So I do think I am addicted to drugs now.
Indeed, insight into Elliot's fractured mind is a huge component of the series as a whole, and between his ever-present internal monologuing, intermittent fantasy sequences, and Mr. Robot, who will be revealed as a Tyler Durden-esque alter ego in due time, the writers provide a combo platter of avenues to explore what makes him tick. Elliot's an iconoclast, although I'm sure him stumbling into casual sex with his hot pants drug dealer Shayla in the first episode severely deducted his social outcast points in the minds of a handful of viewers, who views the very fabric of modern society as an illusion, but who also reductively views even the closest people in his life as simply amalgams of the data he's preemptively, paranoidly mined on them. A mindset of viewing human beings that's as cold and calculating as our crooked corporate overlords, and one that he will come to learn leaves some very significant gaps in his understanding of others, because not all insights into the human psyche are conveniently post-it noted around the web for any old hacker to stumble across. Another way the series does well to distinguish itself from Dexter, while the writers would tell us that Mr. Morgan was a real disturbed individual, a square peg in society, it increasingly came across as an informed attribute. And by the end of the series, Dexter was easily the most stable and socially well-adapted member of the cast. By contrast, the more Mr. Robot goes along, the more apparent it is that Elliot is Crazy Town Banana Pants. Though some of his tirades against the ills of social media perverting society, religion, and corporate greed oppressing the masses can be disappointingly boilerplate for a character who is intended to be so innately idiosyncratic. Especially given the trippy complexity of the series at large. I'm not so much asking for the talking points themselves to change, just maybe zhuzh it up a little.
But first, a word from our corporate overlords.
The supporting cast are well fleshed out enough, if not nearly as complex as Elliot. Mr. Robot we'll get to, but he essentially functions as a shoulder devil for Elliot, since he will ultimately be revealed as a manifestation of Elliot's more anarchic and unhinged urges. Aside from the handful of scenes where he appears alone without Elliot, after completely taking over Elliot's body, designed to throw savvy viewers off from the fight-clubbing scent. Darlene is an increasingly hedonistic hothead, growing more and more incensed as she realizes just how entrenched and undefeatable the opponents F Society have pitted themselves against are. Romero is the put-upon straight man, officially getting too old for this shit. And ideologically idealistic second-stringers, Mobley and Trento, both realize that the Alderson clan are a few cards short of a full deck, and maybe it wasn't the brightest idea in the world to join forces with them to commit the crime of the century. Like I said, they're not as complex as Elliot, but with most of the first season spent inside Elliot's noggin, they really shouldn't need to be. However, there are a handful of breather episodes that put Elliot on the bench, and when the supporting cast has to carry the runtime in those early episodes, the momentum of the show can come grinding to a halt. A solid chunk of screen time goes to Angela, Elliot's childhood friend and a coworker blackmailed into aiding the Dark Army, unbeknownst to Elliot. While later seasons will give Angela a significant amount of material to wrestle with, meaningful interconnections with the primary storylines of the series, and some really meaty character development to sink her teeth into, Season 1 spends all this time with her, told ultimately just set up that she's a nice lady with a childhood history with Elliot and moral compunctions about what Evil Corp is doing, who's going to wind up working in the belly of the beast next year, where either she will change it or it will change her. And while the death of Elliot's father caused by an Evil Corp toxin leak is used to further develop his character, with his stand against the company almost a cornered animalistic lashing out to contrast his father's acquiescent rolling over and dying, Angela's mother sharing the same fate kind of just reads as stock "you killed my parent" motivation when compared to how much juice the writers squeeze out of Elliot in the same situation.
Just tell me what to do here, because the only solution I can think of is to give up.
And then we get to the villains. On the minor arc villain side is petty crook Fernando Vera, an early season caller of Elliot's vigilante moonlighting. Vera serves as the centerpiece of Mr. Robot's first truly exceptional episode, a nail-biting breakout mission where Elliot is coerced into springing Vera from the Huskow with the life of his maybe, possibly, could-be new girlfriend Shayla hanging in the balance. An impossible mission made even more difficult since Vera's own men are working against their Looney Tunes boss's rush-ordered rescue mission. Vera is an effectively crafted and portrayed love-to-hate villain, especially because he manages to so effectively back our ambitious main characters into a corner despite being pathetically low rent himself. And, of course, that he kills Shayla anyways even when Elliot miraculously delivers a jailbreak is just the final insult. Vera skips town, and I'm sure we'll never see him again.
Yes! Yes! This shit right here? This shit tastes better than any pussy I ever had.
Vera's presence may prove the most imminently perilous, but the big bad of Season 1 is Evil Corp CTO hopeful Tyrell Wellick. And just call me Elliot Alderson, because I'm of two minds how to feel about this character in his debut season. On the one hand, I'm a sucker for a crazy over-the-top villain, and Tyrell Wellick is nothing if not crazy and over-the-top.
Lawrence? You'll never be able to afford that tuition and unemployment.
Sorry?
You're fired!
Just as the series endeavors to show a more grounded, true-to-life version of what hacking is like compared to typical Hollywood hacking in the F-Society storylines, Tyrell's story in Season 1 is essentially a grounded, true-to-life version of what a complete disaster it would be if someone sliming their way up the corporate ladder decided to actually act like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. His attempts at psychosexual manipulation fall flat on their face and end in tirades of impotent rage. Rather than sticking to bachelorhood, he's paired off with an equally conniving wife. He's totally whipped by her and seemingly loving every second of it, although, funnily enough, that only makes him even more literally me. And while Patrick Bateman could never be punished for his actions even when he was begging to be, Tyrell Wellick winds up on the lam after one little old impulsive murder.
We're investigating a murder that occurred at your husband's place of employment, ma'am. May we please come in?
She's been murdered, and you think I did it.
So while the moment-to-moment antics of Tyrell can't help but be amusing schlock, I find the purpose of the character as he fits into the larger narrative and themes of the first season to be muddled at best and outright confusing to first-time viewers at worst. He's sort of in this Boardwalk Empire Nelson Van Aldeny place, where he's set up as the spearhead of this massive institution that's going to work at odds with the show's main characters. But then as the first season winds along, that role in the narrative winds up subverted and the character just sort of defeats themselves through their own insanity. I had my issues with Season 1 Van Alden too, but Boardwalk Empire at least had the courtesy of introducing and establishing other law enforcement characters to flesh out that corner of the show's world building. Mr. Robot's freshman year is in the awkward position where Tyrell is really the only Evil Corp character we get to know until very late in the season. We don't really get to know Price, the CEO, until the season finale, and as a consequence, Tyrell comes across like he's supposed to function as a figurehead character for the 1% of the 1% of America, which is very misleading because, one, that is not Tyrell's role in the following season narratives at all. Season 2, you may hear his voice over the phone, but he is simply not there, and then he becomes this, crazed disciple of Mr. Robot. And 2, his over-the-top nature is at odds with the more sincere, dystopian tone the show is trying to establish. It's harder to buy the corporate machine as this cold, unfeeling juggernaut, grimly marching along as it tramples us all under its feet without care, when our one character functioning as a window into that world pays homeless people so he can beat them in the streets for his own amusement. Reminds me of that dichotomy between House of Cards and Veep that became a topic of discussion back when those two shows were on the air. Yeah, there's a part of us that sees the ills of the world, and it's easy to imagine our politicians are these scheming chess masters who would kill journalists with their bare hands. But the both sad and hilarious reality is probably closer to a bunch of scumbags caught in a never-ending spin war, desperately trying to keep jobs they're all immensely ill-suited for.
Did we all have cigars and laugh hysterically as we signed the evil documents? Is that what you pictured? Well, I'm sorry, hon. See, the world doesn't work like that.
As the day of the hack approaches, Elliot starts to pick up some major vibes from Darlene. And since his last girlfriend died with the whole trunk-or-treating incident, Elliot's single again. So he goes for the kiss. It turns out the vibes he was picking up on were sibling, and he's forgotten their lifelong relationship due to his ongoing mental instability. Apparently, not for the first time. This kicks off a string of revelations that positively electrify the final act of Mr. Robot's first season. Darlene isn't the only family member Elliot forgot his relation to. Mr. Robot is also his dad. And no, his dad didn't fake his death. He's still very much dead. He's just an alternate persona of Elliot, because Elliot has dissociative identity disorder. I did not see that coming. And just before 5/9, the day F Society's big debt-erasing hack is planned to be put into motion, a recently unemployed, on-the-run Tyrell Wellick stops by to give Elliot the talk. Hey Elliot, I murdered a woman and I loved it. I know you're involved with F Society and working against E-Corp. Take me to your base while I talk about how we're gods. In what was probably an oddly comforting moment for Elliot, as I imagine it was the first time in weeks he finally felt like he wasn't the most disturbed individual in the room. As soon as Elliot finds himself alone with Tyrell in a room, with a gun, we cut to credits, and Elliot wakes up several days later. It would appear Mr. Robot hijacked Elliot, mind, body, and soul for the duration, and not only successfully executed the 5/9 hack in Elliot's stead, but also resolved the tense situation with Tyrell, and isn't forthcoming about how exactly he did that. So, while F Society covered their tracks, the streets are packed with celebratory debtors now relieved of their crushing financial burdens, and the skies are peppered with evil corp execs raining from rooftops, which makes for a hell of a first week for new hire Angela. Elliot has to skip the celebration and try and piece together what happened to Tyrell. If Mr. Robot took more influence from Dexter, possibly literally. Elliot attempts to will Mr. Robot away, while Mr. Robot reaffirms that, I'm here, your body will occasionally commandeer, get used to it. And that's season 1 of Mr. Robot. The infectious energy of the finale's nation-spanning revolution is captivating, and a good indication of the deeper world-building the series is about to indulge in. As fun as F Society's capers could be setting the stage for 5/9, it becomes clear after finishing the series that the writers were able to have a lot more fun with the consequences of the hack following its success than they were showing the logistics of how the hack was done in the first place. And while Elliot's big question for season 1 was, where is my mind? His big question for season 2 will be, where's my Tyrell?
Should I tell her the truth? Should I tell her that her husband's dead?
He called me last night.
That's impossible.
He wants to let me know that he's okay. He has a plan.
Behind the scenes of Season 2, Mr. Robot showrunner and series creator Sam Esmail would seize the reins of the project even more thoroughly, going from directing 3 episodes in Season 1 to directing every single episode personally for the remainder of the series. The disquieting cinematography inundating the show with a sense of unease, courtesy of director of photography Todd Campbell, is only accentuated further with Todd and Sam's sure-handed sophomore year collaboration, employing their distinctive quadrant framing method designed to put audiences in Elliot's socially detached, off-kilter shoes, and putting us further into Elliot's head is Elliot's new rigorous daily routine, intended to keep the pesky, anarchic voice of Papa Robot at bay. Elliot's staying with his mother, only leaving home to observe games of pickup basketball in a public park, or to get lunch and dinner with his new 90s sitcom-obsessed binging friend, Leon, always at the same diner. People who stop by to visit him seem quite uncomfortable to be there, especially F Society members who are all very recalcitrant to check in on Elliot or discuss where he went and, oh, he's not at his mom's. He's in prison, isn't he? Well, yes. Though not involving anything to do with 5/9, Elliot got pinched for hacking and blackmailing his therapist's cheating boyfriend. I did manage to guess Year 2's big twist before the season's opening montage was even finished, although that was probably due in part to me thinking, won't get fooled again, and throwing ludicrous twist guesses at the screen every 5 minutes. Whiterose, the leader of the Dark Army, is a third personality of Elliot. Tyrell isn't in hiding, he's been dead the whole time. Evil Corp CEO Price has taken Angela under his wing because they're secretly related somehow. Wait, really? That one's right too? You're shitting me. The prison thing's more of a cute gotcha than a genuinely world-upending, impactful one, like the Mr. Robot reveal of last year. That reveal recontextualized so many moments on a second viewing in some pretty heartbreaking ways as well. Like Elliot was not being tormented and tested by Mr. Robot, he was self-harming, or when he's enduring withdrawals and the only thing getting him through it is the last-minute reassurance from Mr. Robot that Elliot's not alone. Now, of course, we know he was alone. With the prison twist, Elliot's own monologue after the reveal kind of winks to camera like, yeah, we just wanted to pull a fast one. And even if you don't guess it immediately like me, the insight checks to see through the ruse get easier and easier as the season progresses. Craig Robinson is obviously some sort of corrupt warden or Nurse Ratched type running a trafficking site on the side, and Elliot has to aid him in his shady business to facilitate his own F-Society schemes because for some reason that's the only way he can get unmonitored access to the internet. And once Elliot takes the site down, it earns him the ire of neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis who, for some reason, elect to spend every afternoon hanging out in a public park with a bunch of black guys. Hands across the water, I guess. Maybe it's hard for me to judge the effectiveness of the twist entirely and compare and contrast, since I saw it coming so well in advance. But before I get too negative about it, I will say overall it's not a boon or a curse, just a wash. The major beats of Elliot's relationship with the crooked warden, who ultimately comes to terms with his own inability to live with his atrocities, as well as Elliot's continued, increasingly trippy efforts to wrestle Mr. Robot out of his mind, work just as well in prison as they do at his mom's house. I don't feel it's one of those situations where the work is so preoccupied with having a twist that the hoops they jump through to facilitate the twist detract from the story. Like, I'm not a card-carrying Bioshock Infinite hater or anything, it's a fine game, but that story has a really hackneyed sci-fi plot device that causes the main character to forget their own motivation, all so the end can, do a twist where it reveals his actual motivation. Obviously, a main character with a really flimsy fake motivation for 90% of the story is, underwhelming. Anyways, why am I talking about Bioshock?
It's because most critics have shitty taste.
Looking around the internet, the general consensus seems to be that Season 2 of Mr. Robot is the boring season. A major reason for this is that the central mystery of the season is finding out what happened to Tyrell and, if he's still alive, what he's planning. And, whether the show wants to admit it or not, Elliot is in prison, so he's in no position to be going on a manhunt across the tri-state area. Another reason for this criticism is that Mr. Robot's sophomore year shifts the focus away from hacking, heists, and infiltration, and toward further emphasis on exploration of the psychological. As thrilling as some of the show's Season 1 capers could be, I'm gonna go ahead and white knight for the effectiveness of Mr. Robot's Season 2 mental exercises. Elliot's make-believe fantasy future worth fighting for, which is so delusionally optimistic that it ends with even some of the villains joining him for a dinner party, is delightfully adorable. And that half-episode-long fake sitcom world Mr. Robot sends Elliot to in order to spare him from being conscious for a beating, so good. If you cut it live, USA Network actually ran their old 90s bumpers and promos for the duration of the delusion, even convincing Budweiser to run a vintage ad during one of those breaks. Now that's commitment to the bit.
Together, because it's one for Alderson and...
Alderson for one?
The final way Season 2 earns a reputation for slowing down the tempo is that, in contrast to a proactive plotline from Year 1, Year 2 is all about reactive paranoia. When F-Society member Romero turns up shot to death in his own backyard, the rest of the anarchic collective fear they may be next, and I found the nervous dread of the supporting cast held enough momentum to keep me entertained, if only because that nervous dread is established early and often to be entirely warranted by the ever-increasing body count. Another early addition to the mass grave F-Society accidentally dug for themselves is Elliot's old boss Gideon, who despite being the only honest man in tech, is being set up as a 5'9" fall guy, only for his string of misfortunes to come to an abrupt end as he's gunned down by a conspiracy theorist. Darlene's Dark Army adjacent boyfriend catches a bullet to the head as well, and even Elliot's neo-Nazi abusers don't live to see the credits, when Elliot's saved by secret Dark Army operative Leon. Though with a knife shoved up his ass, he's probably better off.
You don't want to know where this knife been. Feel me?
So yeah, it's a slower burn than what came before, but the pervading atmosphere of the second season I found much more effectively drew me into Elliot's world. And, honestly, once you've sat through the 5th season of The Americans, no show will ever feel slow again. Still, Mr. Robot can't entirely beat the languid pacing allegations, because just like before, the supporting cast is simply not strong enough to carry the show when the writers decide to experiment with no Elliot episodes. Season 2 adds Dom to the cast, an FBI agent who will function as our insight into the law enforcement side of this world. She's written fairly workmanlike, a character quirk here, a focus scene demonstrating her loneliness there, and despite the writers' Michael Scottish tendencies tendencies to have masked men burst into rooms and fire guns at her an uncanny number of times, none of her material is terribly gripping. At least, this season. Next year, we learn her boss is a mole for the Dark Army, and she makes Darlene an FBI mole in F Society, and we get to do the whole Departed shuffle. That's more like it.
You are not on some TV show. This isn't Burn Notice. There are no blue skies for you out there. Characters like you are not welcome here.
After Elliot's release, both the writers and the characters seem to realize, oh shit, we're almost out of episodes. We better step on the gas on this whole plot thing. So the race is on to find Tyrell. After some wacky hijinks with Tyrell's wife, and tracking down the mysterious phone Tyrell's been calling from, which actually belongs to the widower of the woman Tyrell murdered, who's been calling Tyrell's wife to be like, oh, it's me, Tyrell, I'm still alive, help me, help me. Classic prank. Elliot realizes the real truth of what happened to Tyrell was with him the whole time. It was in his heart. In his head, actually, as he utilizes a lucid dreaming trick to recall memories of what Mr. Robot did in his body the night Tyrell disappeared. It turns out the pair struck up a deal to see Mr. Robot's revolution through, because at the end of the day, this is a two-step plan. With the debt records erased, Evil Corp's response has basically been, nuh-uh. Holding people to payments regardless, attempting to bill people who have already paid off their loans, withholding savings accounts under the pretense they can't verify the account holder has any money at all the while collating paper records in a massive facility to create a 5/9 life support. Oh, and their eCoin cryptocurrency is on the verge of replacing the US dollar. So honestly, 5/9 worked out great for them. To take down their 5/9 recovery efforts and finish the job, Mr. Robot and Tyrell are going to blow up the building. And knowing Elliot had moral compunctions about blowing up a building when planning Phase 1, Mr. Robot has elected to simply not tell him about Phase 2. Elliot attempts to stop the plot, much to the confusion of his erstwhile partner Tyrell, who doesn't know the details of Elliot's dual life. And ultimately, Elliot challenges Tyrell to shoot him if he wants to stop him, believing Tyrell to be yet another hallucination. Definitely one of the ballsier plays to bluff someone pointing a gun at you. Go ahead and shoot. You're not even real, bro. But unfortunately for Elliot, Tyrell really is, and he begrudgingly obliges. With Mr. Robot in critical condition at the hands of his secret partner calls their secret partner, the Dark Army's latest asset, Angela. And that's season 2, but I guess we never did Angela, so let's do Angela. Rising the corporate ladder at Evil Corp under the mentorship of CEO Price, she is offered opportunities to exact apparent justice against members of the company who had a hand in the scandal that took her mother's life. Though as she is squeezed on all sides by Evil Corp, F Society, and the FBI, she comes to realize that the control offered by her growing position of power in Evil Corp is an illusion. Finally finding a cause to fight for after a mysterious meeting with Whiterose, leader of the Dark Army, Chinese Minister of State Security, and long-term control-the-world conspiracy mastermind frenemy of Evil Corp's Price. After nearly giving herself over to the feds just to end the ever-surmounting pressure, Angela now has a new lease on life, along with a confounding confidence in a newfound ability to one day bring people back to life. But to do so, she'll need Whiterose's utopic grand designs to come to pass. If her hands have to get dirty and she, Tyrell, and the Mr. Robot partition of Elliot's mind have to exploit Elliot to do it, so be it. But the Dark Army are ready to get everyone's hands positively bloody.
Please, tell me you can help him. He can't die. He can't die.
Well, he's kind of still alive.
Appalled at what Mr. Robot and the Dark Army have planned for Stage 2, and despairing at the fact that Evil Corp seized the opportunity created by 5/9, and his revolution has only made the world worse, Elliot decides that he's going to work for the sinister conglomerate in whatever felony-friendly position they'll offer him, so he can start Stage 2 proofing their data from the inside, in the hopes of one day undoing the damage he caused with his Season 1 stunt. This new directive puts Elliot at odds with his imaginary father figure. In fact, Elliot and Mr. Robot are no longer on speaking terms. The pair have traded the middle school, the worst years of my life dynamic for a Jekyll and Hyde relationship. By day, Elliot preemptively reinforces Evil Corp to withstand his alter ego's plans, while at night, Mr. Robot hijacks his body and works alongside Angela and Tyrell to see last season's aborted bomb plot through. All the while, Darlene has been unwillingly turned informant for the FBI, and is doing her best to not do her best when it comes to her task of incriminating her brother. With each member of the cast working their own angle, all with the reintroduction of hacking and infiltration missions from the first season and the ticking time bomb of a building promising to blow at any moment, the third season of Mr. Robot certainly picks up the tempo following its sophomore year. It's really the best of both worlds, deftly mixing the introspective character examinations of the second season with exhilarating infiltration sequences that manage to outshine the capers of season 1. But if you still need more proof that Season 3 is the strongest of the bunch, look no further than newcomer Irving, a Dark Army fixer played by the always welcome Bobby Cannavale, channeling Saul Goodman.
Is he dead? All right. Be there in 15 minutes.
Feel my dick. I am rock hard for you right now, mister.
In addition to keeping the feds off the gang's trail and feeding and watering Tyrell, who the Dark Army has been keeping squirreled away off-grid the entire preceding season as part of their endgame, Irving is also visiting the Big Apple to make sure the techie terrorist trio toe the Dark Army line. For Tyrell, that's a matter of convincing him to stick things out until he can clear his name and be reunited with his family. And we'll just keep the news that his wife was gunned down by a jealous ex-lover in our back pocket for now. Mr. Robot needs a bit of tough love to convince him it isn't always his way or the highway. And what better way to illustrate that point than by pointing out that his revolution he's so proud of wound up being a let it happen on purpose situation. And Angela? Well, Angela's already fully devoted to the cause, completely under Whiterose's spell and utterly convinced of the virtuousness of their mission. So really all she needs are some transparently false reassurances that nobody is going to die when Stage 2 goes down.
We've prepared for an emergency evacuation, so no one will be in the building when we go. I'm asking.
We have.
I love this character. So much so that he and Tyrell managed to break the trend of no Elliot episodes being letdowns. Their little cabin fever flashback episode that clarifies many of the lingering questions surrounding the world outside of Elliot's incarceration is a fun watch, and a great focus episode for Tyrell that gets the ball rolling on expanding his character beyond just being a really unhinged guy. And that's one of Season 3's slower entries. As the day of Stage 2 approaches, Mr. Robot reaches a fever pitch with 3 marvelous back-to-back thriller episodes. Runtime Error follows Elliot the morning of Stage 2, where he realizes he's been fired from Evil Corp at Angela's behest. Elliot has to evade building security and find a way back into Evil Corp's system before the clock runs out, with the entire episode presented as a simulated single take, a la Birdman. Following that is Kill Process, picking up immediately after Runtime Error and seeing Elliot infiltrate the target building that's about to blow in a final, desperate bid to prevent the blast. The pulse-pounding tension of the single-take episode continues, though now with the blackly hilarious element of Mr. Robot attempting to thwart Elliot at every turn, even if he only is able to take over his body for minutes or even seconds at a time. Call a cab and just start driving Elliot away. Take over for a second or two and smash his computer. Trip him going down the stairs. Smack his head against the wall.
You okay?
While Elliot is ultimately successful in his bid to prevent the building's annihilation, it turns out that Whiterose planned a much grander Stage 2 than Mr. Robot, Tyrell, or Angela were privy to, burning down 71 other Evil Corp offices the same day. In part as a screw you gesture directed at Price for trying to say no to rigging a UN vote in Whiterose's favor, but also a destructive necessity since Elliot established too many redundancies during his short stint at E-Corp, turning Stage 2 into a everything must go literal fire sale. Following this large-scale terror attack, the horrors only continue, with the Dark Army rounding up Trento and Mobley and staging their suicides so they can pin Stage 2 as an F-Society plot with ties to Iran.
Sadly, we have no use for your skills, but you both do serve a very important purpose.
In the wake of Stage 2, there's no big schemes our main characters are cooking up or villainous plots they're racing to prevent. The challenge they face now is finding the will to live. Elliot and Angela are, understandably, the most emotionally devastated of the bunch. Elliot's efforts to protect Evil Corp's information only manage to increase the number of targets and the number of fatalities, while Angela struggles to maintain her devout dedication to Whiterose's end goal of creating a better world with a reality-warping machine when faced with the carnage of that end goal's methods. Carnage that Angela had a direct hand in.
See? They all came back. They're all fine.
I guess I buried the lead with the whole reality warping machine plot point, didn't I? So let's do the machine. An enigmatic contraption to suit its enigmatic owner, Whiterose. A character who predominantly functions as a string-pulling conspiratorial chess master kept at arm's length from the audience while her minions get both the dirty work and the characterization. It isn't until season 4 where we'll receive significant insight into Whiterose's character beyond impossibly powerful, utterly ruthless mastermind, with her Freudian villain motive flashback episode. And by the conclusion of the series, we'll never manage to learn the truth behind her machine. What does it actually do when you turn it on? Does it warp our reality or destroy the world and make a new one in its place, or send the user to a parallel universe? How did Whiterose build it? Or, well, I know how they built it. Whiterose just beat Walter Bishop in the race to dig up all the pieces after he sent him back in time. But the exact function and all the logistics of the machine aren't what the machine is really about. It's not what it's here for. The machine functions as the focal point of the ideological battle between Elliot and Whiterose when Elliot takes on the Dark Army in the final season and Whiterose officially steps into the big bad shoes. Sure, Whiterose's grand plan to send us all to a better world, bereft of the ills of our own, is a noble one, but her utterly ruthless methods, combined with her vindictive habit of tormenting all who oppose her just for kicks, leads one to believe that this may be a selfish goal motivated by Whiterose's dissatisfaction that her world didn't allow her to have the future and identity she desired. And hey, she's at the helm of an Illuminati-esque organization controlling Evil Corp and numerous powerful politicians as puppets. So a lot of the ills of the world are their fault. Meanwhile, Elliot's organization F Society wants to destroy modern society, an ostensibly evil goal that would make the Joker smile. Although, granted, what doesn't? But he's willing to put those revolutionary aims on hold, or even reverse them, to do right by his fellow man, and the people he's come to care for. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The machine is largely in the background until the final season, but I figured I'd tackle its thematic purpose while the iron was still hot. And given it's more of a thematic device than a narrative device, this also means you don't have to fear too much about Mr. Robot belly flopping into the sci-fi deep end.
Everything we see, think, and do is unfolding simultaneously in a parallel universe.
Mr. Robot smartly breaks the trend of following up high-intensity episodes with slower-paced episodes that sideline Elliot, instead going for a slower-paced episode with a laser focus on Elliot, who is making plans to take his own life after he failed to prevent Stage 2, inadvertently exacerbated its casualties, and got Trento and Mobley tied up in all this to boot. On paper, the idea of Elliot delaying and eventually aborting his plans to take his own life thanks to a chance encounter with Trenton's kid brother, who he's forced to babysit, could be a disaster. Elliot regains his desire to live after a heart-to-heart with a precocious child. Oh, brother. But in execution, the episode is really quite affecting. Mainly because Elliot's desire to continue existing isn't reduced to some Hollywood-esque heartfelt speech or eureka moment, and instead it's a more true-to-life, just making it through the dark night of the soul is victory enough. It also helps that Muhammad and Elliot make for a pretty amusing double act.
You're a baby.
You're annoying.
You are.
This is a nightmare.
You are.
So are you.
I wish you were dead.
So do I!
His resolve restored, Elliot stumbles on a Hail Mary plan to undo 5-9 if he can track down an encryption key, once possessed by the late Romero and now under lock and key at the FBI. Elliot hacks a Dark Army laptop to get an insurance plan in place, while Darlene seduces Dom to gain access to the FBI. Another Dexter parallel. Miami Metro PD treated their CIs like a goddamn meat market. Darlene is busted by light sleeper Dom, and learning there is a possibility 5-9 could be undone, compromised FBI boss Santiago calls his Dark Army handler Irving to dispose of Miss Alderson and the agent she honeypotted.
You scared of me now? There are cameras everywhere. You really think I'm gonna do...
Elliot may have regained the will to live, but now the Dark Army really wants him dead. And the finale sees the entire cast, sans Angela, rounded up in a cabin where, one by one, they either have to prove they can be of use to the Dark Army, or die, with FBI mole Santiago up first on the figurative and literal chopping block.
Wait. Dom, just tell him you'll flip. This isn't worth it. You can live with it.
I'm bad at this.
With Santiago burned and, well, now he's dismembered. Congratulations on the job offer you can't refuse, Dom. You're now the Dark Army's latest FBI mole, with the life of her family hanging in the balance should she refuse. Meanwhile, back at the barn, Elliot proves his usefulness to Whiterose by announcing that he has set up a shipping hack that will expedite the startup date of Whiterose's machine, but will shut down should he ever wind up dead. Dom declares her hatred for Darlene, seeing her seduction as the reason she's in all this mess, and Irving announces his intent to go on an extended sabbatical from fixer work. Oh, so long, Bobby Cannavale. See you again when I cover, I don't know, vinyl. Elliot and Mr. Robot make peace, with Mr. Robot revealing the real encryption key has been in Elliot's apartment the whole time, so they reverse 5-9. And while we're on the subject of father and child reconciliation, Price consoles Angela by letting her know he's spent his life being manipulated by Whiterose too. It must run in the family, because, surprise, I'm your pop. And that's season 3 of Mr. Robot. Sorry if the season turned into more of a recap than a review, but that's just my way of saying the show is firing on all cylinders in season 3. However, with the 5-9 hack reverted, the series is, in a way, rebooting, and like an aging computer, it takes a little while to start up again and get running full speed when season 4 kicks off.
You have to understand. I have been trying to stop her from hurting you. That's why I brought you here. But you talk like this, and I cannot protect you.
Season 3 may have left audiences with some pretty substantial cliffhangers, specifically Dom being forced to go Dark Army, and Price and Angela forming a father-daughter duo to take on Whiterose after they both got burned, but early Season 4 doesn't get the most mileage out of them. Dom spends the first half of the season hiding away at her mom's house. Her actual mom's house, not fantasy prison, where, despite her claims to now despise Darlene, she can frequently be found gooning to her interrogation tape. The writers take their sweet time getting her back into the action, although the introduction of her Dark Army handler Janice certainly keeps things lively when she does get back in the game. Well, just as surface-level, level-headed as her predecessor Irving, Janice is much less affable and much more intimidating, treating new recruit Dom with kid gloves, but, made from real kids.
Unless you go to work tomorrow and finish cleaning up Santiago's mess, then I'm going to be forced to do something very bad to your mother. Like, really bad, Like, I'm probably going to have to slit her from mouth to...
And Angela, well, Angela's quest to take down Whiterose doesn't even make it off the bench she was on last season. When Price is unable to talk Angela out of her crusade, she's executed 5 minutes into the season on order from Whiterose. And that's it for Angela. With all the transformation the character has gone through, it does feel rather abrupt to see her go out so prematurely, and does come across as a bit of a slight to the character that the big reveal she got last season and her big death scene this season ultimately just serve as catalysts for Price to finally take a stand against Whiterose. Although Price is a great character, so at the end of the day, it all works out. Angela's surprise demise makes more sense when you learn the behind-the-scenes funny business that motivated it. According to interviews with The Hollywood Reporter, Angela's actress Portia Doubleday requested to have the character killed off, and while an earlier interview with Rami Malek confirmed Angela's death on orders from Whiterose was always the master plan for the series, creator Sam Esmail accommodated Portia's request and killed her off prematurely as the season began. As to why Portia made this request, well, there's plenty of speculation about a variety of different possible causes, but none of Mr. Robot's production team is ever going to confirm or deny. There was a 2-year gap between the 3rd and 4th seasons, and Portia was working on other projects by the time production resumed. She jokingly implied in an interview that she would rather continue filming Blumhouse's Fantasy Island in sunny Fiji than return to finish Mr. Robot in a frigid New York City. Rami Malek and Portia Doubleday began dating after meeting on set, with the pair reportedly breaking up during production of the show's 3rd season. Some speculate that the breakup was less than amicable, leading to tensions on set. Darlene's actress revealed on Josh Peck's podcast that she and Portia discovered they were being paid significantly less than their male co-stars, leading to a pay dispute and accusations of sexism. Again, these are all just rumors. All we know for certain is how the show turned out. Another aspect of the series that sort of gets dropped going into season 4 is the show's occasional commentaries on American society, capitalism, social media, etc. A wealth redistribution scheme was the center focus of Season 1, and corporate America's commodification of the 5/9 hack made for some compelling world building in Seasons 2 and 3. But with the hack reverted at the end of Season 3, that commentary is becoming a vestigial element of the show, especially when Price joins forces with Elliot in order to get revenge on Whiterose, and reveals that following the collapse of the Berlin Wall, an Illuminati-esque organization founded by Whiterose named the Deus Group has been in control of all wars, elections, major global events, and even invented the internet and social media as a means to control the people of the world. Wait, they invented Twitter? These fuckers must pay. The Deus Group ostensibly operates to profit themselves, but is actually a tool Whiterose is using to complete her machine. So yeah, instead of a system grinding the working man down that only finds new avenues of exploitation the more you crusade against it, all of society's woes are now the work of a villain with an evil plan to build a doomsday device who can be smoked out and defeated.
With the Deus Group behind it, E-Corp became the world's biggest front. With every new device we rolled out, there was a new way for the Deus Group to manipulate the public. His pet project, which we belittled for years, had been the singular purpose of the Deus Group all along.
It's to the point that when Elliot and Darlene rob the Deus Group and Darlene distributes their money evenly to the good people of the world, and Darlene's like, "We did it, we finally redistributed all the wealth." I was like, oh, right, sorry. Forgot we were doing that. Kind of thought we were on the whole revenge/destroy the machine arc now. The exploration of Elliot's psyche has always been where you're really going to get your money's worth with the series, so pivoting to an even more intense focus on that is fine by me. Not that Elliot is keen on letting us, or his alter ego, in these days. It may be the most wonderful time of the year in the show's timeline, but Elliot's having a decidedly blue Christmas. His quest to hack the Deus Group is on a crushing ticking clock, since Christmas Day will be the only chance he'll ever get where every member will be in a single location. And as the pressure of his desperate revenge plot to stop Whiterose before he outlives his usefulness grinds him down, Elliot is becoming increasingly heartless. His relationship with his sister is deteriorating, as both contend with Angela's disappearance and their abusive mother's death in dramatically different ways. He drugs and blackmails his latest Mark/girlfriend, driving her to suicide, which he mercifully is able to interrupt. And he's even giving us the cold shoulder by no longer providing an internal monologue, instead leaving that duty to the increasingly concerned Mr. Robot. His heart does grow, well, maybe not 3 sizes, but at least a size, when a Dark Army agent learns their plot and he and Tyrell have to go Pine Barrensing to track him down before he can report back to base. Elliot finally has a heart-to-heart with Tyrell that his care for his sister motivates him to press on, even in the face of impossible odds, after initially planning to leave the increasingly hopeless Mr. Wellick to die.
The world would have been saved! And you would have been the savior! Is that what you think? Is that the fantasy I ruined for you? Stay here! Die! I don't give a fuck about you!
Miraculously, the pair manage to hunt down the Dark Army informant, but that's where their luck runs out, as Tyrell catches a fatal bullet in the showdown. For a tantrum-prone character known for throwing fits when things don't go to plan, it is a neat conclusion to the character that Tyrell is the only person in the series who gets a moment to accept his fate with grace, instead of meeting a spontaneous, violent end like the rest of the cast. But this grim Christmas horror show truly reaches its darkest point when a certain escaped prisoner comes home for the holidays. Fernando Vera. What has Vera been up to the past year? Well, since fleeing the country, he decided to get caught up on Hannibal, but was struck by lightning while watching it, and now harbors a perverse obsession with Elliot, believing he can make Elliot a willing partner, likely in both senses of the word, if he manages to psychologically break him. And who better to aid in that scheme than Elliot's kidnapped shrink, Krista. With Elliot and Krista hostage, Mr. Robot presents their psychopsychology session as a 5-act play, where Vera hopes to give Elliot his one bad day that drives him to madness by revealing the origins of Mr. Robot, horrifically paid off at the episode's climax when Elliot resurfaces the repressed memory that spawned his hallucinatory father. His real father sexually abused him. Mr. Robot was born to take over in situations Elliot can't handle himself, socially, ethically, and most critically of all, emotionally.
You did this to me. Stop letting him make you realize stuff.
Thankfully, Vera doesn't get much time to hit the gas on the gaslighting after the revelation, as Krista gifts him the knife she got him for Christmas, pointy end first. Proxy authentication required is a tense and enthralling bottle episode showcasing some truly exceptional performances, and the dialogue-centric episode also functions as a neat contrast to the no-dialogue caper episode that preceded it a few episodes ago. Whether everyone's spilling their guts or everyone's shutting their mouths, Mr. Robot Season 4 is electrifying in its creativity.
Yo, V, I thought you said this kid a genius, bro.
Swear to God, if you don't shut the fuck up.
Creative, yes, but wow, Mr. Robot, this season has been, very dark. It's all for a good cause, though, because rather than wallow in the darkness from premiere to finale, the final season of Mr. Robot spends its second half delivering nail-biting do-or-die showdowns with the villains and rousing speeches about the power of love from the heroes. Both elements which could come across as schlocky, but since the road to get there this season was so bloody and fraught with emotional turmoil, they instead land as immensely satisfying cathartic payoffs. Vera, Janice, and Whiterose all get an episode where they have one of our heroes at their mercy, twirling the proverbial mustache with sadistic glee, only for the heroes to pull some clever trick at the 11th hour that turns the tables on their tormentors and saves the day. And those villainous breakdowns when their plans fall apart, enough to make a grown man cry. Especially when the ludicrously monstrous Janice finally gets what's coming to her.
The fella's guarding Dom's mum's house. I had to give him a bit of the holy show back there. There weren't no other way.
What? Speak English.
I fucking killed him, dear.
Price and Elliot's big, you can defeat me, but you can never defeat the power of love, ideological speeches to Whiterose are also satisfying, though definitely can veer into schmaltzy territory. Price in particular, I half expected to start going on about Kingdom Hearts being light during his final monologue. Though again, they're earned moments the show has been building to for some time. As is Dom's focus episode, where Darlene convinces her to run away together, where the two are rewarded for fighting for the ones they love with a final farewell. From Irving, who lets the couple know that the Dark Army is no longer concerned with them. Although Darlene and Dom are not rewarded with each other. Neither gal gets the girl after an American Tail-esque missed him by that much moment at the airport.
I was about to do the whole run to the airport thing like Ross did on Friends and Liz Lemon did in real life.
Though each wins a symbolic battle against their own personal demons, so it's uplifting while being bittersweet.
I killed my handler.
Ow. She was a pain in the ass. Trust me, you were doing them a favor. And your little loudmouth friend over there, yeah, well, what she did was a bad thing, but...
With the Deus group defunded and Whiterose becoming America's Most Wanted, Whiterose is left with no choice but to say, do it live, fuck it, and turn on her machine. Just as Elliot also makes his way to the power plant that poisoned his father, the power plant that harbors Whiterose's machine, all while the entirety of the Beach Boys' Heroes and Villains plays, save for the final word, to hype us up for the coming confrontation. That's probably the greatest needle drop in a series of fantastic needle drops. Like, honestly, how are more shows not using this song? I swear, it's just Mr. Robot and Mr. Fox of the fantastic variety. Rather than a shootout, hack-off, or infiltration heist, the final showdown between Elliot and Whiterose is instead a 10-minute conversation, where the two espouse their competing ideologies, and Whiterose ultimately leaves the fate of the machine and the world up to Elliot. She even blows her own brains out while she's at it, as a closing argument of sorts, to demonstrate her faith in the machine's ability to deliver a reborn world. You've got to stick to your principles.
I will not give up on this world. And if you can't see why, then I speak for everyone when I say, fuck you!
Elliot elects to shut the machine down, and the plant melts down with him inside, only for Elliot to wake in a new world. The machine has seemingly worked anyways, transporting the audience to an alternate universe where Elliot is CEO of the socially conscious F Corp. Editor's note here. Tyrell is the head of F Corp, and Elliot is the head of Allsafe. Engaged to be wed to Angela, Price is in her life as Elliot's bumbling soon-to-be father-in-law, Whiterose is an out-and-proud humanitarian, and good old Daddy Robot is still alive too. And no longer a diddler, which is just the cherry on top. The only thing missing from this perfect world is Darlene, who was never born. But we make up for her in the total Aldersons in the universe count by now contending with 2 Elliots, taking us into the finale.
Sounded like you were talking to someone. Shit. You can hear us. There it is again.
The Elliot on our side somehow crossed over after the plant meltdown, and he sees an opportunity to live his dream life by stealing it from his double, murdering Elliot Alderson on the day of his wedding, much to the hallucinatory Mr. Robot's consternation. Mr. Robot was right to be concerned, as Elliot is caught while trying to dispose of the body, and the dream life starts to fall apart before his eyes. The two-part finale definitely warrants an immediate rewatch after viewers conclude the series. The alternate universe versions of the characters are all incredibly fun to watch, but first-timers will probably miss the chance to drink them in properly since they'll be so busy attempting to deduce what the hell the show is up to. And what is the show really up to? Well, that's Mr. Robot's last big twist. The Elliot we've been following the whole series isn't really Elliot. He's another alternate personality. Just like Mr. Robot, only instead of protecting Elliot from distress, he exists to make the world a better place so Elliot won't need protection at all. So the Elliot we've been following perchance to dreamed the real Elliot, isolating him in a mental fantasy world while taking over his body so he could enact these revolutionary schemes, and omitted Darlene from the fantasy, as Elliot's sister has always been his strongest connection to his identity. So the two-part finale was all a parable about how this life doesn't belong to the Elliot we've been watching the whole series. And with the Deus group defeated and the purpose of his existence complete, it's time to stop stealing and give the real Elliot his life back. Rejecting the idea, Elliot wakes up in the hospital, having narrowly survived the destruction of the machine. Darlene comforts him, while pointing out that she's always known he was some sort of variant personality since the show began. Realizing that a fantasy world without his closest relationship is no real fantasy at all, he agrees to give back control to the real Elliot, though Mr. Robot notes they'll always be a part of him. And that's Mr. Robot. At least until that comic book prequel that's been in development hell finally comes out. Well, to an outside observer, the series may be that show where the hackers hack the evil capitalists. As Mr. Robot came into its own, it became this fascinating examination of identity, relationships, despair, and hope that was equal parts insightful and thrilling, bolstered even further by some of its more creative and experimental, unconventional episode concepts, all concluding on an experimental, unconventional finale. It may not be the easiest show to get into, with a first season that takes a while to find its footing and a second season that has a reputation for being slow, but the hot streaks are so hot that I'm confident you'll see it through and look back on this captivating story with affection. After all, I'm you.
This patch ensures that the UPS devices will only run trusted code that's digitally, oh fuck. We have to put this on the gag reel somehow.